and today we're going to talk about institutional plumbing, which I know it sounds either awkward or fancy, but we're going to define all the terms and see where we're at, where we're going, and what do institutions want from crypto. Now, I'll start with a meme because it's not a very technical presentation, and I'm sure that memes are good in any kind of presentation. So we're thinking that institutions are coming for a very long time. I've been in crypto for 7 years now, and I keep hearing each year that institutions are coming, institutions are coming. However, I think that before we think about this, let's define the term. So what is institutional adoption? It's basically the process in which a new financial asset is adopted by mainstream financial institutions. Now, thinking about this, it already has happened, right? Like, you can buy a Bitcoin ETF. You can exchange crypto to crypto in the Revolut app. Okay, maybe it's not non-custodial, but still, financial institutions are offering crypto in one way or the other. Now, what does this mean for the actual big institutions like BlackRock, PayPal, Visa? We can go through all of them and what kind of use cases they would have for crypto. For payment providers like MasterCard, PayPal, Visa, they are card providers. We are powering the swaps behind Gnosis Pay, for example, which is a card provider that is doing any token on any chain into fiat euro money. Banks, again, they start to hold custody of Bitcoin for their clients. Trading platforms, Robinhood is a big example. They're big into crypto, eToro, and so on. Now, when it comes to the ETF, obviously, that's by clear demand an institution that is here. Okay, but still, it's still hard for institutions. We're speaking with many institutions, and we're seeing a lot of roadblocks. And think of all the roadblocks here when you first entered crypto. Like, those are exactly the roadblocks that me as an individual, not an institution, have faced. So it's confusing. Why do I have to have 3 accounts for 3 different chains when I just want to buy, a token on chain B, for example, out of ABC? You don't understand that initially, because when you're coming from a traditional payments and perspective, you just want to have everything, on your phone, on your app, go to the bank, have the IBAN, send it to another bank. It's hard to use. It's a lot of clicks that can mess up things, and you can get hacked. You can send the money to the wrong address. A lot of things in a bad way can happen. And yeah, it's scary. And all those small things that are applicable to an individual, an end user, are applicable to an institution. But there's a solution. Now, what we're doing at Li.Fi is that we're offering all DeFi liquidity in one API. We're the middle chain, the middleware layer for chains, bridges, DEXs, all into one API. So now, what this means is that we're aggregating those liquidity providers. We're aggregating the bridges, the chains, and solvers, as of recently, to offer any-to-any swaps. That means that you have a token on chain A, and you want to end up with another token on chain B. And why we're talking about institutions is because we're speaking with a lot of these institutions. For example, Robinhood is using Li.Fi under the hood for swaps. Consensus with MetaMask is using Li.Fi under the hood for their bridging part. Phantom Wallet is using Li.Fi for their bridge. So if you've interacted with DeFi, it is very, very likely that you've interacted with our smart contracts in one way or the other, either in a more of a traditional finance way, like in a wallet, or in pure DeFi, like Hyperliquid, SummerFi. We have over 150 B2B partners that are using us for swaps or bridge. Yeah, we're deployed on 20 blockchains, a Series A company, and we have a team of 45 people solely focused on bridge and DEX aggregation. So a few use cases of what we can do and what the institutions are asking us to offer is The most basic ones are like, I have a token and I want to buy it and sell it for another token, which you could think it's easy. However, when you're interacting with plus 50 aggregated liquidity sources, bridges, and DEXs, it's very hard because you need some sort of routing algo, which will put a lot of emphasis, obviously, one, on security, and then on speed of execution, gas efficiency, and what's the best route for the user, also time. Maybe you have a very good route that is going to offer you a good output, but it's going to take 20 minutes. And you have another one that is going to be a bit more not so cost efficient, but it's going to take 15 seconds. Which one are you going to choose? Well, we're offering all those options to the user, and it's also very customizable at the SDK level. Now, zaps. Zaps are it's a big word right now because it has been called in so many ways. Last year, people were calling zaps cross-chain contract calls. I guess that we're going to some sort of consensus that we're going to call zaps any kind of interaction with a smart contract on a destination chain, meaning that you can have any token on any chain and zap straight into a liquidity pool or repay your loan on Aave from one chain to the other. This is what zaps can do, which is very powerful. I don't think yet that institutions are so much interested in zaps because zaps are more like DeFi native, but still we're seeing at least questions asked about that. In terms of supported chains, 20 chains, and I want to emphasize on the ones that are coming soon, especially on the number one, Bitcoin. We're seeing institutional demand for Bitcoin, and you would think that that's quite obvious because of the Bitcoin ETF, but they're actually very non-related because institutions, and some institutions like hedge funds or payment providers, they do want to touch on-chain liquidity, and for touching on-chain liquidity, they need the actual Bitcoin, not a wrapped version of it on mainnet or the version that's in the ETF, which is just an investment vehicle. So we're seeing institutional demand, especially for Bitcoin, and then obviously for Cosmos that is expanding more and more and more. I'll talk about a bit about supported bridges and why this is the hard part under chain and bridge aggregation. Looking at DEXs, we have over 30 DEXs with solvers that are basically providing all the same routes. They're fine-tuning mathematically on which one will provide the best quote and the fastest quote. Now, when it comes to bridges, it's very different because there are many security assumptions when you're speaking to bridges. For example, we have built a cross-chain risk framework in which we're calling this the trust spectrum. There is no the most secure bridge. There are bridges that are more secure than the others, and that they have in their underlying security assumptions, they come with either more speed or they're more gas efficient. So we're prioritizing bridges based on, first, obviously, security, and then on speed and gas efficiency for the user. Now, why bridge aggregation? And I think this is very important in the positioning that Li.Fi and most other DeFi players have when talking with institutions, because institutions want a solution that is fail-safe, that you don't have to rely on a single point of failure. Now, having 15 bridges or more that you can rely on and whitelisting the one that you like more, because those institutions, they're doing their homework when it comes to the bridges. They might like one bridge more than the other, and they want to work only with that bridge, which is not a problem for us, because at the SDK level, you can prioritize which bridges you want. It is not recommendable because we have already done the homework, but if the actual client wants to, it's possible. So if you only want to work, for example, with a cross, for example, you can whitelist a cross, and in case a cross is not going to offer the best routes, then you have 15 other bridges to go through. Reduce fragmentation, obviously. There is no bridge that has all the routes out there. We can look at simple examples like EVM to Bitcoin. There are certain bridges that are doing that, certain bridges that are not doing that. So it helps to have more bridges under the hood. Yeah, about a failsafe, in case a bridge gets hacked, and bridges are very, very prone to hacking, you can just unblock that bridge. We're gonna do that anyways for you, and you'll have 15 other options. The reason that bridges get hacked, and I think it's very important for people to know, is that you as a user, your chances of being hacked when you're doing a bridge transaction are probably at par with you winning the lottery. It's very, very unlikely. The users that get hacked when speaking about bridge hacks are the LPs. So you're putting your capital at risk, getting some API for that, and for such reason, you might be a victim of a hack. So bridges are safe from the perspective of going from point A to point B. Being a liquidity provider for a bridge puts you at risk. Now, in terms of supported DEXs and DEX aggregators, we haven't put this yet officially, but besides with all the same chain liquidity sources, we started to work with solvers. So I guess that solvers are a pretty hot topic recently. Solvers are basically routing algos that are going to do exactly what a DEX would do, but on better terms. So the exact same solvers from CowSwap, 1inch Fusion, Uniax, we have them as liquidity providers as well at Li.Fi. Now, what's our institutional thesis? Our institutional thesis is that, one, crypto is going to be multi-chain. We would love to be it cross-chain, like you don't care on which chain you're at, you're going to interact with that. We think that that's going to happen, but definitely not in the next 5 years. For now, liquidity is still fragmented, and you need a solution for that. And the solution is that you want to move funds from one chain to the other, and you will have to be aware that you're moving funds to another chain. There is no liquidity source that can win on every single chain. So there is no bridge to rule them all or a DEX to rule them all. We've looked at the data that has passed through us, which is more than $4 billion in terms of volume. We don't see a bridge or a DEX provider winning 50% or more of all the transactions. So we know that liquidity from the bridge and DEX providers is very fragmented, and thus you need someone to aggregate all those liquidity sources. Now, abstracting chain and liquidity will simplify the institutional go-to-market. This means basically that if you can abstract this and make it more like the future where the institutions are looking for, which would be the true cross-chain world, which is kind of a dream, it gets easier for the institution to get there because they're going to abstract this at the app level for their users as well. But their user will still be aware that it's a multi-chain world. Yeah, our Li.Fi story. Think of the first pain points that I've put in slide number 3, which were that it's complicated, you have to do a lot of clicks, and it's not compliant. You can get hacked. With us, all the DeFi liquidity sits in one API. So you can just call the API and get a quote, which we're sure that is gonna be the best quote at that time possible to get from chain A to chain B, or on the same chain for a swap. Simple. We're simplifying as much as possible. So when you're looking to go from Matic on Polygon to Arbitrum on Arbitrum, you need to first find the DEX on the source chain, find the bridge, and find the DEX on the destination chain. And this is the best case out there, because if you're going from a long tail asset, then you'll probably need to find more DEXs and look on chain for those DEXs. And most users don't even know where to look at. So it's many transactions, very gas inefficient because you have to do 3 separate transactions at best. So we're bundling everything together. It's very compliant because, one, we never touch user funds. It's fully non. We don't touch the user funds in the meaning that we're only calling the bridges and the DEXs that are gonna move the funds from one chain to the other. And you can customize the API for your jurisdiction. What this means is that you can have if you have a security team that only wants to work with a certain bridge, then you can customize it as such. A few of the use cases that we're seeing from institutions is one, rebalance of liquidity. We're seeing this from on-ramps and off-ramps. For example, on-ramps and off-ramps still work heavily with centralized liquidity. So for them, it helps for the long-tail assets like Pepe or other memes to have this liquidity on their side and rebalance that from Ethereum to offer that to their users. Custodians. So custodians usually want something very simple, which is a swap bridge swap from one chain to the other. But still, for them, they only want to work with one provider that they have KYB'd and that they're sure that it's going to offer them the best routes. As mentioned, off-ramps and on-ramps. We're working with Gnosis Pay and a few other card providers to basically offer exactly this, which is you have a token and you want to spend that token in the real world on something at a store. You can do that, for a very long time with card providers that were here for many years. However, it was very restrictive when it comes to what kind of tokens you can use. Now you can use whatever long-tail asset you have on any chain, swap that, bridge that, and swap it into a stable coin like EUROE or USDC, and then the actual off-ramper will handle the swap to the IBAN or to the real-world asset. And I think the last one is very important, which is multi-hopping. So multi-hopping means that basically you can go from Solana to Bitcoin even though there is no direct route. So a route would look something like Solana to EVM and then EVM to Bitcoin. But still the user doesn't know that, and the user has in the front of his screen just one transaction, which is gonna be I have Solana and I want to end up with Bitcoin. Now, when it comes to security, it's fully non-custodial, enterprise-grade controls. We're working with public listed companies like Robinhood, so we need to have this audited 4 times by the best in class, and we're also implementing quarterly audits. I think this is very important for all of the payments and swaps providers out there, mainly because new bridges will also pop up, new DEXs will also pop up, and it's important to have some kind of security compliance around that. And last point, we developed the cross-chain risk framework in partnership with Consensus. It's a pretty long paper that goes into risk frameworks and security assumptions of the bridges. But it's a very good read. I recommend it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Really great insights into institutions. We have time for one question from the audience.
I have a question regarding institutions. One of the things that the clients demand from institutions is demonstrate proof of best execution, which obviously they're going to reverberate on you. How do you actually prove best execution?
Great question. Robinhood actually asked us exactly this question. So we're seeing a lot of order flow going through Li.Fi. We also have Jumper.exchange, which is our B2C interface, and that is, hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of volume, plus our B2B partners. So we're basically competing with other DEXs or other DEX aggregators, which we're aggregating ourselves. So we can look at the data, which would be something you think of it like a chart pie, of all the volume that goes through Li.Fi and which DEX is going to win that route. And as long as there is no DEX, for example, that is going to win more than 50% of the time, then it means that it's more efficient as a route to use Li.Fi. So I'll give you an example from what we've seen for Robinhood last year. Now it's a bit changed because we're working with solvers and with multiple liquidity providers. But the pie chart would look something like 40% for 1inch, 20% for Uniswap, and the rest for other more exotic DEXs. So that means that in 60% of the cases, you're better off choosing us than 1inch, for example, which we're working with 1inch, and we think that it's a great DEX aggregator. But there are so many liquidity providers and so many DEX providers out there and solvers that you don't know which one will provide the best quote at any point in time.